Oh, yeah.
All right, guys, welcome. Thank you for being here, A, on time, and B, everybody here who is supposed to be here. You got to take off at 3, I know, that's okay.
A bit before 3.
A bit before 3, so 2 minutes to 3, that's good. We okay? Yes? Great. So, the last time we met, what we had decided, Phil, the last time we met, what we had decided was, well, we hadn't been decided, I kind of put it forward to you. Let's start reading the text, this next story in the collection of short stories, and in doing so, let's stop at a certain point and then predict what's coming up. Okay? So I've prearranged these pods. No, like I just made a group of 5, and a group of 4, and if you guys decided to sit wherever you decided to sit, except for you because you were the last one in this, so you get the last spot. So what I'd like us to do now is I'd like us to collectively, right, build up a list of everything that was predicted. If you want to all take notes on this, mazel tov. If you want to just designate a recorder or a secretary of some sort, okay, daijoubu desu ne. So, go ahead. You've got about 8 minutes. Record all the elements. Record all the elements that you predicted. So everybody in your group, go.
I'm just secretary. Because my writing is...
His handwriting is terrible.
I have a great idea.
This precludes him
We should just take a leaf and just pass it.
Can I make a suggestion? Can I counter that suggestion? I would like to. Yeah, great. By the way, I'm filming this, and I'm filming this because this is part of my homework for that online course I'm taking.
All right.
I will not put it on YouTube. I will not make copies and sell it.
So, how do you want to start?
So, what did you guys predict?
Okay, so I can start. Okay, so for the characters, well, my 3 predictions were all really related to each other. I predicted that Jahangir would get more respect than the others because of this relationship with Nana. Yeah, which was similar in some sort to So I predicted that the other boys would feel more respect for Jahangir. For the narrative, I also predicted that the other kids would benefit from some sort of intellectual growth for listening to these stories from Naniman, who is a very noble man in my opinion. And globally throughout the book, throughout the collection, I predicted that it would represent the intellectual growth of the kids, as we've seen in the other stories so far.
I thought it was in relation to the collective instead of the whole collection of stories.
Was it the collectors or the collection?
The collector.
Oh, well, it's similar,
I
right?
don't know.
Wait, no, there is a relation.
collection, not
But
collection.
there,
No, it's to the collection of stories.
But there is a huge collection of collectors. Jahangir, who Dr. Modi has passed away, and now he sees Mr. Nariman.
But it was how I fit in the whole story.
The whole narrative.
I did say
I
that.
I thought it was going to be darker than it was.
But you know, okay, so what did you get? Oh,
Well, I thought like it was going to be like a lesson for children, not just like a story that like, at some point it would turn not dark. Yeah, life lesson. But
big story, everyone.
I don't know, because like we
But then no
talked
one
about
started
it.
to believe in it.
The story before it, Pink West, is kind of like
But I was
team
way off.
society too, and the one after too was they kind of show like 2 bad sides of society. So I thought it was going to be like going like from a bit less bad to more bad, and like a bit of middle. I thought it was going like
It was gonna go down there?
yeah, we go downhill from
The name of the
Genghis to
story
then
is
the
Squatter, so I did believe there was going to be
What did
someone
you
that
predict?
kind of
For the
squats
narrative?
around the
You
sheep
finished?
or
yeah.
Well,
Well,
I'm not separating
tries
the narrative
to-
and everything.
so like I don't know for the story, I
but even if
what I thought was like it's going to be a cricket prodigy that like did lots of squats. I don't know.
Yeah,
So like,
that's
There's that, or there's like a squatter in Ferocia bag that's like
Okay.
hiding somewhere.
So we're doing
Yeah, that's
just
what I
like
believe it would
compacted
like someone would be
and
like just squatting.
I compacted to one sentence.
No, that's true, because we talked about the definition of squatting, not
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it was
staying
like
in place.
stay in a place without paying.
And that's why,
There's no the fact that every single story,
there's
like,
Yeah.
meanings of this.
if it's not.
So you're linking that back to the previous.
It has a moral and it has
Well, because
something
it's,
that
I
you
thought
to,
more
like,
squatting
take out of
as
it.
paying
And because,
guests, for example.
Yep.
Like staying in
as
place.
Rox
Yeah.
said,
Staying in
Well,
place.
but the
not
fact that
like
like too many,
Yeah,
it is
and that's
something
also, you're right,
like a
there's
bit more
different,
founder than
right?
fancy stories.
Yeah.
But I thought okay, with that,
Philip-
you have any
Philip's
favorite
favorite
story?
story.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
so
Just
basically,
What I also
Just
thought is that because
I
it said
thought
it's like
that the
that
known
it's
cricketer,
like-
after the
it's
big
actually
like play in the
positive or
Britain,
negative for
was
others.
it? Like
So what
he
I thought
became
was
unknown
happening
and he
is
became
basically
poor,
they
so then he became a
Well, I thought
squatter
that they
in
were like
Ferocia
losing
bag.
from a lot of stuff. They were
And Jahendra, like because Nariman is telling the story, Jahendra is like, oh, that's the guy, I know him. So then he developed a passion on helping poor people instead of collecting steps. I
Yeah,
don't know
so
how.
I'll just go there because mine is just a bit similar to what
Yeah.
we predict. So what we predicted. So well, I said that Narman will die by the end of the story, which is the pessimistic. Like everybody was on
He says that
poor tangent by that time, or that he will reveal himself as a cricket player from that team.
I have a quick question before you move on. Why did you think he was gonna die?
Because it felt very dark at that time.
Oh.
So it was just like, yeah, like Dr. Mahdi has died. And it was like, and they said like he was the new Dr. Mahdi, so I was like, yeah, well, they might be.
He might die.
It was so random, like the story, how it ended for me.
I really
Like
like
so
Yeah.
many, it was, like, both of them were pretty similar in ways.
Because you guys
I
were
wasn't
talking while she
expecting
was jotting
this
down,
squatting
right?
to
And
be
then you
used
can
in such a
synthesize your idea, and then Steph can
Yeah.
record
Squatting
it
to me is
afterwards.
such a literal term.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
Like,
oh, I get it.
plus we only read the story about the cricket, and then
Yes,
he
yeah,
completely
so-
abandoned
Yeah,
that.
oh yeah, then you're
Another
just
goal.
like, yeah, tell me about the
Putting all those
winter.
pictures
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
and see where
There's
we
like,
go.
where we
See-
end,
see
like
where
where
we
we
go.
stop reading, like how would we know that we would end?
Yeah.
Yeah, the story completely changed.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it's
Like
it's
a
really
tiger
interesting.
just figured
Immoral
it
about,
out, maybe.
I don't know if it's stupid to talk about, you know, the smell of the fish.
Yeah.
Is there like a relation?
Wait, smell of the fish?
Start lower before.
I mean, why does he always, why did he talk about the fish for like a whole page?
Because he was being told to
It was
come
kind
and he likes silence.
The main
He
aspect.
talked
is
about
that
the fish.
Yeah, but the smell of his wife was fish.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
think he used.
I thought the guy in the US smelled
No.
fish while he was
Which
going
there
to
can-
the appointment, and I was like, that did not happen.
So, my predictions were that Nairan will be scolded by restoration.
Which was true.
And that also with what you were saying about the boys being like taught a lesson, like a moral lesson. And I also said that Tabusha
Maybe
would
to
save the
the
game
game
because I thought the whole story was going to be about Tabusha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he
What's the
did
name of
say
the guy?
Shabuksha.
No.
Naiman.
Not the other one.
The one who squats?
Not the one who scolded
In
Narman.
the plane.
Rustam
Rustam
G.
that's the guy in the first place.
And.
They'll
I had Juman.
Who also had a story about going to the toilet.
Yeah, I know, which is probably why he was so mad every time he came out. Like,
No.
You're right.
no, that too, but like in my head, I was like, don't tell that story.
Wasn't
Yeah,
it
maybe
that
Rustam
he wanted to go
was
to the bathroom but he kept having water and he said that
That's fine.
No, it's like the toilet above him was
Probably
leaking.
simply to
Yeah,
reflect
and
the
he got-
little things that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's actually Rustam but like he changed the story so that
People
he
generally.
couldn't say, hey, don't tell my story to the kids.
But when
Oh,
when I
you're right, 'cause he
travel,
said he was
and then,
related
so
to
if I've been
someone
on a plane for 5 hours, I'm in a new place,
But that's
But
all
related.
related.
my
Yeah, but the
regular
relation-
body
but-
rhythms are all off.
He
Yeah,
said
it's
that,
so
but
bad.
maybe
Because
it's
I
just
spent
a,
5 hours in a
Okay, are we
tin can
done with our
here,
like predictions?
right? Now I'm at this new
That's what it
place.
says.
I think it's a
Right, now I'm
really
making
good link to the next
food and all
story.
this stuff. My routine is.
Yeah.
It's a really good link. It's
Oh,
really
right,
good.
yeah, we
Get
can-
back to the
Lend me your life.
immigrant
Yeah,
experience.
Yeah.
He's like first it leaves, and then he deals with that whole.
It's good to do that.
Well, I
Yeah,
thought
there's
it
a lot
was
of
kind
fun.
of good after, because they do make mention in that book of
Okay, so-
twins in Canada, and later they also make mention of twins in Canada, so like both of them.
no, but
But
the
the first
twins
is
already
after, he
left.
said
Yeah.
he
Twins
just,
left.
yeah, twins are left, but he said he was
Twin girls.
applying to.
Yeah.
Oh, so
to-
I believe
Yeah,
somewhere like
no,
in
he
one
was
of
there.
those stories.
Yeah, that's related to.
Okay, 1 minute to try to finish up your list.
Yeah.
No, not yet. That's
Well,
gonna be
that's
the
next.
second. That's the second part.
I think
What
that's about
happened?
it, right?
None of the above.
No, I got it right.
No, you should have some
No,
stuff.
I
She picked a couple
You,
lines
I don't
there.
know, me, nothing. I invented
She was like-
the whole story
She
on
was
my
like, what's
own.
happening with the fish?
No, but I really thought it was
The
gonna
fish
be.
kept me,
It's like a-
kept me awake the whole
I
time.
like
I was like, what's up with the fish?
No, but I really
Little-
thought it was gonna be a
little
story
fish too.
where they're gonna help.
So,
They do the fish.
make sure that I remind you, after we finish with the predictive what happened, make sure that I remind me to address the idea of the fish. Because there is a reason for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get the
Okay, guys, your recorder, the recorder for each team goes up, and Steph, you can right over there, okay? And Amanda, you can drop down over there on the left-hand side. Oh, sorry, Leah, Amanda's right there. No, so now Amanda, you're the recorder for the next part. What actually happened? We're gonna have you record because you completely confused the story, right? So these people will contribute. So somebody else is recording now, and you're going over what really happens in the story,
Never mind.
okay?
I have paper.
Okay?
Alright, so what really?
Really happens. There's this guy.
Did you hear about Leah?
Yeah, I heard.
Of this one?
Yeah,
About not being able to
Yeah, but he's
push
the
out the
story.
record.
yeah. It's actually pretty good.
It's
It's a serious thing.
really trying.
I think it's a good, you're right about that.
And finally, when he accepts that he has links to his origins, he pushes it out. Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, it's true.
The guy
Okay.
That's what kept me going.
Take, no, I want you guys to start now. Yeah, so we're maximizing our time together.
What happened?
Okay.
What really happened? Phil,
Fish
Charles,
was right.
Yeah.
what really happened?
Okay, so first we mentioned behind years, people thought behind years how it might be more respected. Yes and no, the story really didn't really focus on behind years, obviously.
He likes to have
I
people.
think it's fully
more
on the
focus
left side.
on some bookstones too, and how he likes sharing the library and
No, so
his on the children's part going
What's the guy's name? The
Merriman?
MCC guy. So,
Merriman?
You don't need to note that down, that was a joke.
no, but
Okay.
he thought it was gonna concentrate on cricket, but he.
Oh, you're right.
Cricket.
Cricket. That's not, I can't understand. I thought it was
And
gonna talk
Naraman
about
didn't
cricket.
die, that didn't die, he didn't die,
Yeah,
so that's
they
the
didn't
word.
What's his name?
Going back to prediction, that was a,
No, we're supposed to say what happened, not what didn't happen.
yeah.
That's-
I thought it was going to talk about.
Thank God somebody's bringing us back on task. Yeah, we're supposed to be looking at what actually did happen.
Okay, what actually did happen? Do we know the
No,
name?
could have happened is the, or the prediction
To
side.
Canada.
Oh,
No, but I think you mentioned.
News story.
Yeah, a new story,
Yeah.
on,
Do we know his name? Of the guy that went to Canada?
Yes, it was Sid.
oh really?
Sid, oh yeah,
And the other name.
Sarosh Sid.
Sarosh, and then he changed when he went to Canada, he changed it to Sid.
Okay,
Um,
so let's explain the story.
so it's a story on how when even if you try to achieve many things,
The other ones?
happen.
Yeah.
Well, he
True,
said
but also it's like always, it's
it's like
you
even
can't
if
get
you're
away
rich,
from your orange
you
ones.
don't, or even
Maybe
if
if
your
you're
condition
successful.
is better. Yeah, you do.
No,
Yes,
can I make a
that's
suggestion?
the big
This
thing.
board
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and- yeah, this is that famous
Yeah.
story, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, he goes to the immigration thing.
So,
Okay, what else?
what
So
were the other?
Sid, he has a bowel problem.
Yeah, that's
Sid,
And they offered him to get a
Focus
trial.
on
Yeah.
What's his name?
and
Doctor.
social adaptation.
No.
Yeah,
And-
Cultural.
Yeah,
cultural
dash,
adaptation.
In a way.
I.
Yes.
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it's, for example, in
And,
Europe, but
also-
it's,
Yeah,
see that?
Yeah, in China you have this law.
anyways.
You guys don't like that.
So he has problem adapting to a specific part of
I
society.
have problems
No.
with that.
It's like so stupid.
What?
Yeah,
They're so
airplane
fun.
does.
You gotta put, you get to
They
put
scare
it
me every time
cover.
I flush.
I love the cover.
Do you steal them and bring them home?
And so he sort of gives up.
Okay, what else?
That's great, that's a great list.
Perfect list.
I thought it was a lot straighter.
And they go through and
Oh, when you're writing on the board? You know what, it's writing on the chalkboard is tricky. Not as easy as it
It's
looks.
like a dildo.
Okay, you know what you can do, Steph? If you need more room, just erase the predicted
Well,
and
two.
write up.
My hand
Oh.
is so.
Okay.
just looking at.
Okay.
Okay, what else happened?
So he went to go see how do you describe that?
Oh, a doctor.
It's a
Oh,
doctor.
no,
Yeah,
it was
it's a
like help
cultural-
for,
Help for
cultural
everybody, yeah.
adaptation.
Adaptation
Yes.
doctor.
Service.
Yeah, it wasn't a doctor, it was someone who has, it was like an immigration bureau, when you come in, they help you find housing and stuff like this.
But hey,
And
I don't
a
consultant.
Yes.
Doctor,
Yeah, that's work for.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he does many doctors.
That's the thing, he's a self-proclaimed doctor.
Well, he did surgery on that.
No, he didn't.
No, he
He
didn't.
would send it to someone else.
No,
he
he
didn't.
didn't.
He didn't.
Oh, he didn't do it.
He
Because he
suggested.
said your offspring
Okay.
might get the same
Alright,
problem.
yeah.
And also, if
Go
someone
through what
is
happened.
real close to
Everybody
you,
gets it.
you might also, it might
Yeah.
open an
Go through the what happened on
As
that
if,
side
as
of
if
the
that's
board.
what we
Okay.
genetic.
Although-
The machine's genetic. It's like, oh yeah, your kids are
Interrupted, does it take 2 hours?
Okay. You could point for it, because I know you were writing complete sentences, but go through those up as well, okay? All right, now, folks, let's let's review what we had as two specifically individual groups predicted, because when I set this forward with you, I had suggested to you that just, think kind of outside of the box, what might happen and stuff like that, okay? So if we look at the lists of elements that were predicted, let's take a look at to see if there are similarities in one group compared to the other.
Life lesson.
Okay, life lesson. Okay, good. Yeah, boys are taught a life lesson right there. Life lesson. Okay. Critique of society.
cricket in some way.
Yeah, cricket in some way. Yeah, match would continue. And where's?
We talked about that bookshop.
Player
Okay.
fatigue hanging around.
Okay, good.
I think someone said that.
Good.
Teaching the children.
Yeah, teaching the children. Yeah. What do you
Yeah,
think?
life
But yeah, we talked about like the library, like you want to be a messenger. You have
Yeah.
wanted to kind of educate the children because he knew that they weren't going to the library.
Okay.
You could be that guy.
Okay. Good. Rox, do you have anything to
There?
that we notice kind of overlaps, not interlaps, overlaps between the two sets of predictions?
Well, which time she comes back about his annoyance with everyone.
Yes.
If he gets scolded, he said he would still get it.
Okay, good. He would come back and stay. So, despite the fact that we were very kind of diverse groups, right? These were not pre-made or anything like that. We still end up coming up with a fair number of similar predictions. What I think is really cool though, we still have the outlier predictions, right? We still have the predictions that are, you know what, all I'm being asked to do here is like guess. So go ahead and guess, right? Now, if someone says, I don't understand why you would predict that, can you explain why? And then, Leah, you go ahead and explain why. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe Amanda isn't able to explain why because she's completely misread the story. Right? Or maybe she didn't read the story closely enough. Okay? These are all good. Now we're looking at what actually happened, and here obviously there should be elements that are strong. Okay? Strong elements that resemble one another. Okay? I would like to talk about the fish. Can I do that while they're finishing this up? Okay. The story is about squatting, okay? And it's not the squatting like the earlier stories. This is the physical squatting because your bowels are not functioning properly, okay? Now, this is a very, you may talk about it or you may read it, you may think, oh, it's like, why is the focus on this? Like the idea that the person's not able to have a bowel movement. One of the main reoccurring themes in Mystery's collection and his later novels as well, the very basic activities of the day are the things that make up the day. There's very rarely all these explosions. There's very rarely people who win bags of money. There's very rarely someone who dies because of a murder, right? Very rarely are the CSI Los Angeles group called in to investigate the murder, okay? It's not the release of the Game of Thrones, right? It's just mundane. Go back to the very first story. What's happening in the very first story? The toilet upstairs is leaking and it's dripping on Rustamji's head, isn't it? So the fish, it's just that. When you walk into the house and you smell something that you really like, you're like, oh. And what happens to you? What happens to your body? Right away, the hunger pangs start. What else? Physically, what happens? Salivate. Yeah, what else? What do you say to whoever's in the kitchen doing what it is?
What's for dinner?
Yeah, you say, what are we having for supper? Or if you're like my kids, what's for supper? It's all like one long guttural utterance. Yeah? The idea is that these are the small things that make up our days. Okay? So these stories are about everyday people in everyday situations. Right? So that's where it's like, what's with the fish? But the fish is like, what's with the urine falling from the, right? It's like, what's with this guy who can't, like, have a bowel movement, right? And he's in a plane, so he's between two places, right? And where does it work finally?
The plane back.
Yes, but where? The plane is?
Oh, the plane is
On the runway.
Yeah, it's on the runway, right? Okay, so it's stable. He's no longer neither here nor there. He's at a place. Okay. Let's look at the lists that are up here. These are really cool lists, right? And as I suggested, there's a lot here that makes sense. These lists should make sense because hopefully we've read the same story. Right, Amanda? Yes. Okay, so now what I'm asking us to think about, and this has no particular use other than, all right, we were asked to predict, and we read, and we came up with some elements. So I'm just going to my notes because, well, you know, I'm getting on in age, and I'm forgetting things, but I came up with a few questions that I'd like us to look at. I'll go to the glasses as well. We look at these two lists, right? So, what can you take away from the exercise of predicting and seeing what actually happens, okay? What are your influences, right? So what's your takeaway? What are your influences? And how do we lean into a story having read other stories by the same author? Okay? In a way, I think perhaps the second and the third question are connected, right? But go ahead, do you have the questions there? You don't have to take any notes or anything like that, it's just like free-form thinking, okay? What were our influences? What is it that forces us to lean, or what forces act upon us to lean into a story in one way or the other? Okay? And the first question was, what are your influences? Alright? So again, don't take any notes. Let's just take about 5-6 minutes and just jabber away. Go ahead.
Maybe, I think it was having read the other story, knowing about the characters. For example, John.
The comprehension.
Because we knew from the first story that Nariman was, relatively too Ristomji was more respected.
Or something like
So, and we also knew about
Liked by most people.
Nope, and we also knew about Jahangir, whatever, his level of about how mature he was compared to the others, about how isolated.
That's a great point. Do you think I planned it that way?
Yeah.
I didn't. I really did. But it's a good.
Like that's why
it's
I
good
thought they would
happenstance,
focus
right?
on poverty because they talk about it so much.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh, there's a squatter and they're gonna help him.
I thought it was
I
going
don't
to
think
be
it would have helped.
But I guess.
What happened to Francis is that we knew that nothing special would happen.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I know, but with this story, they might be like, oh, we did that wrong, so let's do it right
But
this
Francis was
time.
only kicked out by his story. First he was accepted, he actually helped.
But he would.
And the paying guests, they also stayed there for some time, even though they weren't supposed to be there.
No, they were allowed to.
No,
Yeah.
there was corruption in the council for the building.
Because they were paying that.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
When, like,
have, it's
emphasize
like, it's as if you said,
Yeah,
you're not allowed to
caricature.
have cats that are commercial, but
Yeah,
if you
like,
pay
it
like
was like,
$100,
the problem was
it's okay.
emphasized
Yeah,
on,
that's what they did.
like, it was
The
hard
poop
for men.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the implant and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you say, this author loves poop.
Well, just stories that came before and after.
Wait till the last story.
Maybe it was the link.
Was it the first story, then you get crushed by the throat spoon, then you
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
another thing, and I don't know to what extent, I'm just making the
So are you, what question are you talking about? Are you talking about
the historical context. I don't know
Influences?
a lot about India, but I know about some, and we saw it in the stories, the relationship that Indians have with English culture tradition. And we see that with cricket, for example. So I wasn't surprised to hear about England.
Yeah.
They keep mentioning it.
And then he used some English words, I believe, like right.
Maybe.
He said in his like,
No, but
he
right.
spoke perfect English, but he said that
It would be about
An American accent.
yeah.
Can I make a point on
No,
that?
it's true.
You're talking about Nariman, right?
Yep.
Okay. If you think about Nariman, and it's not my idea, but the video that I sent you, okay, on the link, there's a point about his affection for English and England, and his affection for India. So it's kind of like a bit of a love-hate relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So note that when you look at the video, note that part.
yeah, he does say that he likes to learn a lot of new words from English. And yeah, I feel like he's really interested in the outside world as he goes to the library all the time and reads about the works there.
Yeah, he wants.
I put a link on Leah.
I mean,
Okay.
what Philip just said, you can understand that he kind of likes travel without living physically, and he condemns those who leave. He's like, he likes other places, but if you want to leave India, he's not going to be able to find it. He's going to be like, he wants to stay, but still explore while staying in India.
Like a spectator.
Yeah.
I don't think he's against people.
So
doing it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe they start doing lessons for you, make sure.
Yeah, that's more of a warning.
Yeah.
I was not saying like, oh, don't go to Canada. It's
Yeah,
happening.
but if you
Right,
want to
big
go
eyes.
to Canada, you would say then, yeah, that guy did not.
No, but Charles,
So
right?
why? So she said why, she said
Sometimes
yes.
you don't go,
She
but I
actually
think
does.
go, watch
all
out,
of
you
us
don't
sort of
go,
in-
oh, this
Yeah,
guy
it's
didn't
my,
know,
yeah,
we
it's
can
my
get back.
friend, you could
No,
not.
I think he.
For like 10 pages.
But Charles is
But
right,
I
because if
didn't
you
get
look
that he was
at
about
what,
to read that
this reminded me,
story,
last year we
and
read
we
some
did
books on the
about
retour
that.
pays natal
So maybe
French,
not.
which is about how when you leave,
Yeah, I did not. I
When
should
you
have.
leave
But
your-
it's
your,
pointless for me to predict because I've
birthplace
read these
for
collections
a long
5
time,
times.
and
I know stories.
and you realize everything is gone. For example, when my aunt
But
was
I do
abroad,
that, like,
and when she came
if I
back
was
home,
reading, if
her,
I were reading,
my grandma's
Nishikura,
house has been destroyed.
No.
So, you know, like it's things
because I
that
think
you're
I started
used
trying to
see,
read that because my
and
wife
it's
read
like,
it, she said you'd like
it
to see it.
changes and it's really
It's
discouraging.
vision.
For example,
So she gives it to
when
me, and I think I read the first 25 pages.
Scissors
This was my-
goes back to Mumbai. He says, oh, Bombay, he says, oh, this is where we used to hang out. And then he goes there and there's people there, but it's not his friends. And, you know, so he's not used to, he hasn't, he left for 10 years, so he, all of the changes
Other
that,
stories.
he missed all of the changes, and I think that's.
Yeah, they all happen suddenly.
They don't.
And that's.
No, but they
lesson
only
that
help
they're
us understand
like
the
to-
character, like
They-
the
they-
attitude and
But
like
I think it's more of a
characteristics,
warning, because
everything
all
else,
like,
character, you know.
not towards
And
that
then
you
that-
should
that is
stay
not-
here,
Yeah,
absolutely,
so-
it's more
But other
because
than that,
during
it's like
in all the other
reading the other
stories,
stories, I
you
can't
only
say
get
that I
this
can
idea that if you go to Canada
But I
or the
think it
United
makes
States,
it
for sure
better
you're gonna have a good life,
understand
and he just wants the kids to understand that
Yeah.
that's not like certain. Not exactly he's being like, oh, don't go, it's just, there's a chance that you are not gonna get a better life if you go there. So you don't understand that.
He was working shooting sites.
That is the moral story.
No, I don't think these stories have morals like, you know, like the boy who cried wolf, not morals like that.
But he did
No,
start
but,
the
like, it
story
says
with
here,
saying success doesn't equal
Yeah.
happiness.
I think it's a reference in some way to, he references his own life, the
Yes.
opposite print, his real
Yes.
life. I don't know about the spotting, but the rest, I find that, you know, in Lending Your Life, what I found interesting was when, was it Bessie who went to Canada?
Yeah.
And he said, he received a letter from his brother and he said, oh, here I am watching TV shows in my Canadian apartment while my friend is, and while my brother is, you know, saving lives and helping
People back
impoverished
in-
people back in his own country, in his own community.
All right, so that was good. I'm listening in. I chirped in too. I added some ideas. This was a pretty interesting exercise for me. Carl asked what did you predict, and I didn't do the exercise of predicting, though whenever I read, I do kind of predict, right? Or whenever I'm watching a Netflix show or something, right? You're like, oh, for sure, she's involved in the, right? You always do that, right? We tend to do that. It's part of our nature, yeah? It's a really cool skill to develop as well, okay? So you've got two options to you in terms of keeping what was recorded. The person, the two recorders in your team can, I don't know, type it up and forward it, or we could take quick screenshots of the boards. Okay, so let's do that, and then we're going to shift on to something else. Okay, that was great.